My soul wasn't my own. Raised in an orphanage, I had spent my life thinking I had no relatives. However, when I was 16, a lady called for me. She was my Auntie Magda, and to me she seemed like the most beautiful woman in the world.
Frankly, I don't know what I'm going to do with you, Abby. I manage a nightclub and am rarely home.
Don't worry, Aunt Magda just having a family and a home mean everything to me. I presented a problem for Aunt Magda. How, in her busy life, could she find time for an orphaned niece? But after the maid brought me back from a shopping and hairdressing trip,
I wish I knew what to do with. Why, Abby? Is that you? You're not plain at all.
my changed appearance gave Aunt Magda an inspiration.
I had no idea you could look so pretty. Of course, I should have remembered your mother. She was beautiful. And a wonderful singer, too. Can you sing, Abby?
At the orphanage, I sang in the choir and at celebrations. She heard me sing and called in a prominent vocal teacher.
Her voice is small but very sweet. It has possibilities, Magda, if you are willing to make an investment.
I'll make an investment, all right. And for more than just singing lessons. She'll have an entire course of training, voice, dancing, even finishing school.
I could hardly believe all that was in store for me, thanks to the kindness of my newfound aunt.
When I get through with you, Abby, you'll not only be ready for a top spot in my nightclub, but may even land yourself a rich husband. I'm not going to spare myself money or you work. You're going to get more out of life than your old Aunt Magda.
So my aunt invested in me. 2 grueling and expensive years turned me into a singer as well as a lady, and I wasn't permitted to go near the nightclub until I made a debut there.
Exquisite. Wow. Is she really your niece, Magda? Where have you been hiding her?
Ravishing Dolls. Is she real?
Mr. Randolph, a millionaire widower, seemed especially interested. Aunt Magda whispered he was a fine matrimonial catch.
Magda, you must let me pay my respects to this lovely creature. I've never seen anything like before.
Just then, Paul Scarpa, the famous sculptor, approached our table. He was as excited as a gem collector seeing the Hope Diamond for the first time.
Magda, my cabbage, you know I never go to nightclubs for my models. But I need a young figure to represent spring in a new group I'm doing, and your niece is it. And thought,
Aunt Magda was delighted. She think that posing for the great Scarpa will enhance my new fame. We went to his studio.
here's the sketch of my contemplated group. I call it Spring in Flight. Abby will be spring and forever a lewd man's grasp.
Who posed for male figure, Mr. Scarpa?
Cal Martin, grand physique, but completely absorbed in this dramatic career. Between parts, he models and wrestles. I can assure you, he's only interested in his future as a serious actor.
It was arranged that Aunt Magda's chauffeur would be with me to the studio every day. Scarpa told me to put on the Grecian dress in the dressing room. Uneasy in my costume, I was shocked at the appearance of my partner in a leopard skin, but he paid no attention to me. I found the long stretches of holding my position a terrific strain when I felt myself wearying.
If you feel tired, you can lean on me a little. I'll support you.
I was grateful for Cal's kindness. When I tried to thank him, he was cold and abrupt. That night, I had a curious dream. I was in the studio alone, going from statue to statue. At last, I came to one I had wondered about, a mysterious young god whom I was sure I knew, although I didn't know why. I stopped to look at him. Suddenly, the god became a man. He was warm, alive, and kissing me. In the evenings, I sang at the nightclub and kept seeing Mr. Randolph at Aunt Magda's insistence.
Please be a little more attentive, Abby. If he proposes, you won't have to spend the rest of your life in a nightclub as I do.
But to me, the evenings were only stopgaps until morning and posing with Cal again. Cal, who saw me as only another model and hadn't the slightest personal interest in me. The buses crawl along the avenue like beetles. Strangely enough, I've never ridden in one.
With a big car like yours, a bus would be rather like slumming, wouldn't it?
That stung me. Cal thought I was a rich girl. It's not my car, it's my aunt's, and this is the only place it ever takes me.
Haven't you ever heard of Subway, or doesn't any of your crowd use them?
I'm not a pampered debutante. Aunt Magda took me out of an orphanage and invested a fortune in training me. She's looking out for my future.
So that's it. The old girl is fattening you up for market, you mean? Has she chosen the highest bidder for your husband yet?
You're not fair, Cal. My aunt's only interest is my happiness and security.
I've seen your picture on the society page with Addison Randolph. If you marry him, I'll bet Auntie feathers her little nest too.
Though I resented his words, I was glad to find him more human after that. One morning after the chauffeur drove away, I met Cal, who told me Mr. Scarpa was too ill to work.
Are you in a hurry to go home?
Oh no, why?
How would you like to hop a bus with me and see the city?
Oh, Cal, I'd love to. By the way, I've tried and tried to figure out why this statue looks familiar. Would you know?
Sure, it's me.
The bus took us to an automat. I had never been to one. Cal was amused at my childish delight in the nickel slots, and when I came to grief over the coffee, guilty as I felt about fooling Aunt Magda, who thought I was working, I couldn't resist ending the day with Cal at a movie, and when his arm stole around me, I forgot all about my aunt, the studio, and marrying a millionaire named Randolph.
By the way, Abby, why did you jump when I told you I was the model for the Marble God?
I dreamed about him one night, and it kind of left an impression.
And the fellow who posed for it? Does he leave any impression?
I think we'd better get back to the studio before the chauffeur calls for me, if my aunt ever finds out I wasn't modeling today. Not only the chauffeur, but Aunt Magda as well, were awaiting our return to the studio. I had never seen her so furious. When we got home,
I took you into my home, a little beggar. I clothed you and robbed myself to fit you for a career and a chance at a rich marriage. And you repay me by running around town with that wrestler.
she was merciless in her disappointment. She gave me no chance to defend Cal or myself. Cal is not just a wrestler, he's a very talented actor, and he works at whatever he can get between parts until he makes a name for himself, instead of sponging on other people.
Silence, you little fool! If Mr. Randolph hears about this, your name will never cross his lips again.
I don't care what a middle-aged playboy finds out about me. I want a real man when I pick a husband, not one who hangs around nightclubs because he's rich.
That settles it. With such half-baked judgment, I guess I'll have to continue to do your thinking for you. You're never going to see this Cal Martin person again.
As time passed and I didn't hear from Cal, I realized miserably that I couldn't have meant much to him, and that I owned Aunt Magda a lot, so when she came home with a new inspiration one night,
Well, Abby, since a rich husband is out for the present, and I still want to save you from a permanent nightclub future, how would you like to get into the movies?
the movies? That's not so easy, is it?
Basil Wagner, the producer, has come in from the coast. If I could arrange an accidental meeting for you, it must be accidental. He combs ambitious girls out of his hair. Maybe he could be persuaded.
And then the opportunity arose. Spring in Flight was finished, and the day for unveiling the masterpiece came. Aunt Magda made sure Wagner would be there. I was looking for someone else, who didn't seem to be. I hadn't heard from Cal since the last day I appeared at the studio. Here, before the figures of man painting after Spring, stood Spring herself, wretchedly aware that her man didn't want to see her again.
That's Basil Wagner admiring the group. If he likes your statue, our troubles are over.
Oh, thanks a million, darling, for writing me. There is something here I wouldn't have missed.
You mean Spring, Mr. Wagner? Here is the girl who modeled for it. My niece, Abby Lang.
Lovely, lovely. But where is the fellow who posed for the man? He's a knockout. He'll out. Tarzan, Tarzan. Where can I find him? The fellow... Oh.
But my niece? Don't you think she'd make a starlet? She's got looks and a voice.
Not now, Magda. Pretty girls with voices are a dime a dozen in Hollywood. But that boy there, I could create a new jungle series around him. Ah, here's the sculptor. Mr. Scarpa, give me your male model's address. I've got to get in touch with him.
I can't, Mr. Wagner. I haven't seen him since the group was finished. Nobody knows where he is.
There he is, Mr. Wagner, on the balcony.
So he is. Cal Martin, come down here.
When Cal came down, he was stiff and standoffish, but after Mr. Wagner was through persuading him, he turned to me.
I don't care whether you've ever been in the movies or not. With the chassis and set of muscles, I'll build a whole new classic around you. A lion-skinned Hollywood Hercules.
I'll give you my answer after I've talked to Abby, privately.
We found a deserted alcove. Cal was still stiff at first.
Abby, tell me this. Are you married to Randolph yet?
Of course not, I never intended to. But what right have you to ask after walking out on me?
Darling, I walked out on you only because I had so little to offer. I couldn't ask you to share the insecurity of an actor's life. But if I accept this offer of Wagner's and become even a freak movie star, would you marry me?
Oh, yes, Cal, darling. And you wouldn't always be just a freak star. You could go on to better parts. It's just a start.
Oh, baby, after all my hopes, I can't talk Wagner into signing you up. It's this creature he wants.
But Aunt Magda, if I marry this creature, I'll be the wife of a movie star.
Young men, are you going to accept my offer or not?
Of course he will. I can speak for him now. He's going to be my nephew. Shall we go to the club and celebrate? The children can follow us when they're ready.
And as Cal's lips found mine before the statue of spring in flight, my heart exulted that my marble god had become alive, warm-blooded man who would no longer kiss me, only in my dreams.